Hello, this is Steve Caldwell, and today I'm going to show you how you can take an input on one note and transpose it to another note on output using Bome MIDI Translator. And so without further ado, I'll go ahead. I've got a new project started. If you notice down here in the lower area, I've actually got Bome mouse keyboard loaded up. I'll be using that to actually generate the key strokes going into the translator. And then on the upper part here, I have the translator set up. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to first define an input and an output so we can actually hear our results as we're doing it. So I click this little button here, and I can define the project MIDI ports that I want to use. I'm going to use Bome MIDI Translator 1 virtual input port, which is actually the output port that the translator or that the Bome mouse keyboard is using below. And then I'm going to output to the Microsoft Wavetable synth, virtual synth. And this way, as I'm typing on the keyboard here, it can go through Bome MIDI Translator Pro and back out to the virtual synth. But before I can actually get any notes, you'll notice there's no notes going out when I click that. I have to actually set up routing, which I'm going to do here. So if I just take the virtual in that I created, draw a line over to the out, if I push a button here, now you should hear the notes. And just so I have a different sound, I'll set an organ note up. So that is going through now, Bome MIDI Translator, untouched, no conversion done or anything. So now we're going to do the conversion. We'll first create a translator. We'll call it note on. And we'll change it so its incoming is a note on channel 1. Instead of note 64, I'm going to say any note, and I'm going to set the variable to PP. We'll use that variable later for figuring out what the output note should be. And then the velocity, I'll pass through the velocity untouched, but I will also need to output it, so I'm going to have to create a variable to identify what the output velocity needs to be. So now we have the incoming taken care of. Now the rules, I'm going to come back to that in just a second, and at first I'm going to just pass it through untouched, so you won't really see any change here. But we're going to do a MIDI message here again. I think I call that note on, and this is note on. It's also going to be a note on. And it's going to be note number, we'll give it a value of RR because I'm going to change it in the rules, and velocity, we'll use the QQ that we had on the input. In the rules, I'm going to change it to say PP or RR equals PP, which was the incoming note, plus 7. That's 7 semitones or a perfect fifth. So now when I press the input button or the key on the keyboard, if I were to press it now, the note on would go through, but 7 semitones higher. I don't want to do that now because I don't have a note off programmed, and if I push the button, it's going to hang out there forever until I do a note off. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to duplicate this translator, and instead of making it note on coming in and note on going out, it's going to be note off coming in. So we'll change that to say note off. And going out, the same rules are going to apply because I want to turn off the same note that I turned on. And going out, it will also be note off. And the rules are the same. So now when I push a button here, the note that I play should be 7 semitones or a perfect fifth higher than the actual key. And I'm going to press middle C here. And you can listen to that sound. Now, if I disable this preset, you can see what the actual key is. So you'll notice that it went up 7 semitones by enabling that translator. Now, just as information, if you want to make it an octave shift, you would change the values here to 12 semitones, which is a full octave. And now when I press the middle C, it's gone a full octave up. So hopefully you find this helpful, and if you have any questions, feel free to go to www.bome.com. This is Steve Caldwell, and thanks for listening.